On August 2nd, 1934, two railroad cars carrying federal prisoners were placed aboard a barge near San Francisco and carried across the bay toward Alcatraz Island. Locked inside with dozens of other inmates was Al Capone. Only a few years earlier, his name had been synonymous with money, power, and organized crime in Chicago. On Alcatraz, none of that was supposed to matter. He was now federal prisoner 85. What happened to Al Capone during the 4.5 years he spent on the rock? Capone was already more than 2 years into his federal sentence when he arrived at Alcatraz. Convicted of income tax charges in 1931, he had entered the federal penitentiary in Atlanta the following year. But in 1934, the government opened a new kind of prison on an island in San Francisco Bay. Alcatraz was intended for inmates considered difficult to manage elsewhere, and its rules were deliberately strict. Prisoners were guaranteed food, clothing, shelter, and medical care. Almost everything else, including work assignments, recreation, correspondence, and visits, was treated as a privilege that had to be earned. For a man accustomed to commanding an organization and having others act on his behalf, the change was immediate. Whatever influence Capone had once possessed outside the walls, inside Alcatraz, he was expected to follow the same routine as everyone else. Capone worked ordinary prison jobs, including time in the laundry, and lived in a single cell like other inmates. His days were governed by counts, meals, work assignments, and recreation periods. Even communication with his family was restricted and closely monitored. This system was designed to prevent prisoners from building the kind of outside connections or internal influence that could undermine the institution. Capone adapted, but his name did not make life easier among the other prisoners. In January 1936, inmates began a major work strike that spread through several prison industries. Capone reportedly refused to participate. Whether that decision directly caused later trouble is uncertain, but it appears to have done little to improve his standing with some of the men around him. On January 23, 1936, the danger became physical. Capone was in a prison shower area when another inmate, James Tex Lucas, attacked him with a pair of scissors. Capone suffered a wound to the chest and cuts to his hands, but the injuries were not serious. Accounts of the time reported that Capone fought back and knocked Lucas down before guards intervened. Exactly why Lucas attacked him was never firmly established. Lucas reportedly claimed Capone had threatened to kill him, while another account said Lucas had reportedly asked Capone for money and had been refused. Whatever the cause, the incident revealed how completely Capone's circumstances had changed. In Chicago, his reputation had inspired fear. At Alcatraz, that reputation could make him a target. Away from the violence, Capone increasingly occupied himself with music. He played with the prison band and wrote to his son about practicing instruments, including the tenor banjo, tenor guitar, and mandola. He also spent recreation periods playing games and taking part in activities permitted by the prison. It's an unusual image. The man once photographed in expensive suits and associated with the violent underworld of Prohibition-era Chicago, now passing time inside Alcatraz learning songs and playing music with other inmates. But while Capone was adjusting to prison life, something more serious was happening to him that neither discipline nor routine could stop. Capone had contracted syphilis years before his imprisonment, and by the late 1930s, the untreated disease had progressed into neurosyphilis, damaging his brain. His physical and mental condition began to deteriorate noticeably. By 1938, prison doctors recognized that he was suffering from paresis associated with the disease. The change was profound. The problem was no longer simply that Alcatraz had stripped Capone of his influence. His own health was now taking away his ability to function as the man he had once been. He required increasing medical attention, and the criminal figure who had dominated newspaper headlines was becoming seriously ill inside the prison hospital. In January 1939, after roughly 4.5 years on Alcatraz, Capone was transferred off the island and sent to a federal institution at Terminal Island in Southern California. He was still a prisoner and would not complete his federal sentence until later that year, but his time on the rock was over. The Al Capone who left Alcatraz was very different from the man who arrived in 1934. His organization had continued without him. His ability to influence events had diminished, and the disease affecting his brain would prevent any meaningful return to his former position. Alcatraz had been built to isolate men the government considered difficult to control. In Capone's case, it succeeded, but his decline came from something the prison itself had not caused. By the time prisoner number 85 left the island, the gangster who had once seemed larger than life was already disappearing. So guys, I want to talk to you about something exciting. If you guys want to send a letter to the Eclectic Historical Society at this address right here, we will send a letter back to you that is hand typed. So if you guys are interested in sending us a letter and getting some correspondence back, we would like to read your letter and respond back to you. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel. If you would like to further support the Eclectic Historical Society, you can join us on Patreon or visit eclectichistoricalsociety.com to check out our merchandise. Until next time, this is the Eclectic Historical Society, and remember, history is lost if it's not repeated.